Mortgages, not to.
There we go. Let me get all situated again. There we go. That was crazy. Um, okay. So yeah, so I was talking about like, list of repairs from the HOA, any kind of special assessments that the HOAs are doing or gonna do, or, we're not strangers to dealing with special assessments. You guys, know about that stuff and do it all the time. The issue now is that they really want to understand the brevity of that. Like, what does it mean? What are we paying for? Is it one of those critical repairs? A lot of stuff. So, you know, before we kind of jump out of that, I'm happy to go back and talk about anything else, but I wanted to show you guys like this is the full review form now. It used to be just a couple of pages. Now it's like, 4 pages. I thought it was 5, but maybe it's just 4. And then thank you. The big deal that has really changed is right here. I'll try to zoom. Whoops. Right here. I don't know if you guys can see that. It's a little blurry on mine, but where it talks about the project's condition. These are the questions that cause us all the issues. I mean, there's always with a condo, there's always some issues that can pop up, but this is the main thing. So I'm not going to read through all of them, but has the HOA had a structural mechanical inspection report in the past 3 years? There it is. If they check yes, we have to have it, or we're in trouble. Do we have any significant deficiencies, defects, substantial damage, blah, blah, blah? One of the biggest issues is that, if they check yes, but they say that they've got all the stuff figured out, we just have to document it with invoices, and it's very granular, and that's become very difficult. I think also one of the biggest issues that we've run into is that a lot of the HOAs just don't really know, and they don't know how to answer these questions. And so if they leave them blank, that's a problem. They have to be answered yes or no, or we have to dive down until we get somebody who can answer it. And that's really been very difficult over the last several years, in that just trying to figure out what the answer to the question is and trying to figure out who can answer it. Um, we don't have that many condos that go bust. I had one go bust last month because the HOA, they had a lot of structural stuff going on, and they had a big report done, and they just weren't finished fixing everything, and they didn't really have anyone that could really speak intelligently about what they were and were not doing. And so that really hurt us, because I think that if somebody had been able to speak English to us, we could have been able to figure out how to get it approved, but they just wouldn't do anything to help us at all. And they left a lot of these questions blank. And so the condo ended up getting turned down. And I had 2 agents that were really working really hard to try to help us get this done, and the HOA just would not cooperate. So you run into that too. So, that's the basic. For one, it's extremely complicated. It's very granular on all the updated guidelines, but I just wanted to give you guys just like an updated highlight on, kind of what we're running into, what we're seeing now that everything's become permanent. This is what we're dealing with now. And, and it's very challenging. So, I am going to stop my share now. And if you guys want to ask some questions,
Hey, Van.
yeah, go for it.
Yeah, before you do that, I just want to do a really quick recap of kind of all the things that you encompassed there, just from a really high level. Just, for anybody that, might have skipped through or missed a part, but the big changes is that they've kind of taken away the lender's ability to make a determination on if the condition of the property is safe. We used to be able to use the appraisal and kind of see if the appraiser made any notes about condition. And it was basically, if you don't know anything, there's no harm done, no harm, no foul. We can't say it's bad if we don't know it's bad, if that makes sense. So that was taken away, and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac came down with a very specific list of what is considered safe, what is considered not safe, what options we have to document it, which is kind of where the meeting minutes and, you know, the inspections and everything came from. Is they're telling the lenders, we don't want any gray area. It's going to be black and white. You're going to be approved or not. Now, of course, they say that their list is not all encompassing. So at the end of the day, it's not, you know, exactly, but that also means the lender has to put more strength and effort into validating the condition of the property. That's essentially the biggest piece of all of this, is how strict that got. And then with special assessments, they used to be able to be funded by reserves, but now they want to know, well, why do you have an assessment? Did the roof go bad? Is there something wrong with the building? Are you just, you know, refunding your reserves? Because there's different reasons for special assessments. So I'm not going to say that a special assessment is a flat no-go, but they want to dive much deeper into what is it, how's it getting paid for, is it paid for, and is it going to affect either the physical, structural, or the financial capacity of the complex? So that's, you know, the second piece. And the third piece with the inspections is, well, if you've had anything done in the last 3 years, I want to see it. Not I assume it's correct. And that includes, you know, county, local, state inspections as well. If any regulatory inspection has been failed, it's going to be an immediate no-go. So that, in a nutshell, those are all the big things that were added with this permanent change.
Carrie, quick question.
Yes, sir.
Someone's asking, is it based on the age of the building as well as 5 or more units?
So it is, so as the 5 or more units piece, that is considered a normal, you know, traditional condo complex is is 5 or more attached units. Anything less is non-traditional. So you're 4 or less, or you're detached, or your 2-unit condos. Those are excluded from the guides. However, the lender still has to make a determination if the building is structurally safe and sound. Well, how are we going to do that unless we ask the questions? So even though they're excluded from the very specific list of what Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac require, they kind of put a little thing on the side and they say that, you know, we still have to find a way to come to a determination that the project is safe. And, you know, document any special assessments. So even though they're excluded, they're kind of not excluded. And then the other piece was the age of the complex. The age doesn't matter. Yes, the age is going to be scrutinized because you're going to be like, this is a, you know, 80-year-old complex from the beginning, you know, in the middle of Atlanta. It's probably going to have more issues than a newer complex. So it kind of gets like, I guess, kind of docked, but they're using the answers to the questions, because even if it's an 80-year-old complex, they might have recently replaced the roof. They might have had structural foundation inspections. They might have done their due diligence to keep those buildings up and safe.
Yeah, the age really doesn't matter at all. It can be a year old, it can be 80 years old. You just have to answer the questions.
Yeah, a year old and they messed up on the foundation and it cracked under building 3 could be a problem, which actually kind of leads to another little caveat. If it is a localized problem, let's say one unit had, you know, a busted pipe and it leaked out into that unit and another unit, they do exclude things that are isolated, but you have to determine if it's isolated. If it's 2 units in a 6-unit structure, that's not really an isolated, you know, incident. But if it's 2 units in a 400-unit structure, that with 7 buildings, that would be considered an isolated incident. So there are some exclusions if it's just one teeny tiny little thing. Yes, Mr. Chris.
I had the same issue happen this past summer where it was a big complex. It was Collier Green on Collier Road. And the unit that my buyer was looking to buy in didn't have any issues whatsoever, but homes on the other side of the complex were the ones that had the issues. And no one could close the loan. It became a big thing. And I ended up changing lenders, and this other lender got it done.
Yeah, they do stipulate the isolation, but then the lender has to do their due diligence to verify it's isolated. Like and it really kind of just depends on what it is. Like, you know, a water leak is not going to go to building 7 if it's in building 1, but a crack in the foundation, you know, outside, you know, the stairwell, well, that means, well, if this one cracked, the other ones were built at the same time, is there any chance that they could be affected as well? So they will rely on another inspection that was done to verify the security of the other buildings. So, you know, and I can understand a bunch of lenders saying no, because the guidelines are getting so deep and scary, and lenders are just afraid of all the buybacks at the end of the day. Because at the end of the day, Fannie and Freddie have to say, yeah, you underwrote this to our guidelines, and they're looking for any reason not to. So, I mean, I can definitely understand easy, hard no's if they're not quite sure how to get around it.
Yeah, I mean, the labor, you know, our team, Carrie does an amazing job on leading our ops team on trying to dial down all these condos. Like, we'll get in there and roll up our sleeves and really try to figure it out. And they'll pull us in to try to help work with the realtors to try to get all the data. But at the end of the day, we need someone from the HOA who really wants to help us get it done. And if we can have that, usually we have a pretty good success rate. On my deal, I didn't have anything wrong with the building that I had, but they had several other issues, you know, in several other buildings, and that's where I, you know, struck out. So, you know, we will get in there and roll up our sleeves and do everything we can. And we're not afraid to go all the way up to our credit risk and just try to ask for an exception if it's something that we really can get behind. So
You said something really great, Van. You said that, you know, if we got someone at the HOA that's willing to help, we have one at Gordon Lofts that I was working with a seller and an HOA person for like 3 months because they had something recorded incorrectly and something wrong in their budget and they didn't even know. But it was somebody willing to help, but they still had to schedule a meeting, get things revised, get them approved, and it took time. And a lot of times when there's a problem, even if we have a solution, sometimes we don't have somebody willing to do the hard work to get something done. So that's something that we run into as well. We had one recently. It's like we have a solution, but it's like this is a next to impossible thing to get through, you know? So sometimes that's hard as well.
great
And
question.
I'll add in, Van, that slide you had earlier about, you know, what can the realtors do, you know, going in, the questions they can ask. The other thing they can do is, you know, the majority of the time, the HOA doesn't answer the questionnaire, it's the condo management company. Well, they're not gonna a lot of times even answer certain questions if they don't have that data, or they're not willing to take on the risk of a judgment call of this is structurally sound. They'll just say, we can't answer that. So you guys having a good actual contact at the HOA, not the condo management company, but a president or a treasurer, or somebody who,
Mhm.
when the condo management company will not answer a question or will not provide the follow-ups that are needed for the way a question's answered, reaching out to someone actually at the HOA to help is huge on our end as well.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's just literally as simple as finding the right person to talk to, and that's really hard, you know, because we don't, you know, their name's not on the contract. So we dig, 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 dig. Finally, we find somebody who's a gamer and understands how to get some information back and forth, and then we can work it out. But that's, I mean, man, it's like 9/10 of the battle just figuring out who to talk to. And the other thing that I didn't really want to put this in the slides, but a lot of times when we request this information from the HOA, they give us choices. They say, hey, well, we can give you this information in 2 or 3 days and it costs this much, or we can give it to you in 7 to 10 days and it costs this much. And so I don't think a lot of people really know that. Like when you request documentation, sometimes they'll offer you a rush option, but it's $100 or $200 more expensive. And I'm trying to do the rush literally every time because you guys know, you know, everyone gives you 21 days on a financing contingency. You know, that's commonplace these days, right? Yeah, no, you never have that. You know, and a lot of times we'll try to, you know, get folks to use a condo stipulation so we have time. But you know, that's just really difficult trying to figure out who to talk to. So let's take a few more questions. Anyone? Chris, you got another one?
Actually got a statement. So in that same transaction, I reached out to some other agents that had just closed on other properties in the same complex, and they actually had great information to share on the minutes and the HOA. So that's always an option.
Yeah, absolutely.
And collectively, we were able to put together enough information to kind of get the ball rolling, so to speak.
That's a really, really great point, Chris. And, we run into that a lot too, is people reaching out to, lenders and saying, and people have done it with us as well. How did you close here? And sometimes there's an answer, and sometimes it's as simple as, here you go, take what you have, because, yes, we're competition, but we still want to support each other at the end of the day. And if I reached out and asked the same question, I would hope for the same courtesy. And, Jeremy and Van both touched on it. The HOA refusal to answer questions is huge, because all of last year, these project condition questions, they said, we're not at the project. We don't know the answers. We don't have the, authority or willing to take the risk to answer the questions. And lenders, prior to this permanization, were able to, look into county inspections and see if anything was there, look at our appraisal and make a determination. But now we can't use what we have to make our own determination. So refusing to answer, our questions are still unanswered. So then we go in a circle and we're trying to get a president or a board member or somebody to give permission to give these answers to this person. And there's a lot of back and forth, and it just takes time. So, just something to be super aware of.
Yeah, that's why that condo special stip, including the contract, is so important, because we can get, the borrower's underwriting approval done in, 5 days. We met the finance contingency, but if we go back and forth with the condo management company and the HOA for, 18 days, and all of a sudden there's a problem and their finance contingency is lapsed, that's where that condo special stip can come into play and keep the buyer protected. Now, if you're representing the seller, obviously that's your call, right?
Yeah. Well, I just thought that, if anybody has any other questions, please pipe up. But I'm going to put.
I have a question, quick question. Can you just refresh my memory? What's in that special step? It's been a while since I did a condo.
It is, if you look in the chat, there it is. It basically is a statement that says, we have protection for the buyer, that if something goes wrong specifically with the condo, they can still get their earnest money back. Because, a condo approval is covered under the financing contingency arm. And a lot of times those time frames are just unrealistic for a condo, because a lot of times, we'll have a 7-day financing contingency, which for us, a normal underwriting, man, that's no problem. But sometimes we can't even get the documentation or even figure out who to contact within 7 days if we're working on it 2-3 hours a day. We don't have any, we just can't even figure out how to get the stuff that fast. So it's just always a challenge. And so we always love for everyone to put the condo stip in. That way we can really make sure we have enough time to get it done. At the end of the day, we want to close. We're not trying to beat up the seller. We just want to be able to get it closed.
But are you saying that extends the time frame, or you're saying if you run into issues, you wouldn't even have made a decision if you can't make a decision within the finance contingency, then how does that help you? You're basically saying the HOA isn't giving us information we need, and we can't say yay or nay on the loan, and time's running out. It doesn't extend beyond that time frame, right?
Yeah, so basically this special stipulation just says we don't have a time frame on condo approval. We do on the other parts, but like, the borrower's financing, but
Okay,
the condo approval specifically is separate. Yeah.
Right. So it makes sense. Thanks.
This stip came from one of our local attorneys. She, went through and she kind of made wording that she felt was appropriate from a legal standpoint. So don't think it's a bunch of mumbo jumbo we just threw in there. But obviously from a legal standpoint, if you have any concerns, throw it by your broker before you use it. But we are seeing this stip all the time. It is kind of becoming commonplace in our condos. And when we see it, we're like,
yay.
thank God. It doesn't mean we're going to start any slower. We start the condo just as fast, but it just means, okay, I don't have to have a heart attack and to have this done in 6 days.
Yeah, great question. Any other questions? Okay. Well, thank you guys, everyone. I'm sure we'll, do this again. We really love these roundtables. They're down and dirty.